So moving in from the call to order to our discussion topics, one of the things that came to me is like, I know we're planning this event called Matt's on Main, which I love. To like try and figure out what the community really needs us to be advocating for and what we need to be like working on and towards. But I also wanted to take some time to reflect on like what are the people on this board care about and want to advocate and like be concerned with topics for this next year. With that, I was like, I always want to keep in mind like kind of the three groups that we've decided with like the students, which both high school and college, the young professionals, and the young families of the different topics that we want to like kind of jot down or come together with that we might want to delve deeper into and see how we can help support the city and the city council. And with that, I also wanted to something from a previous city council I wanted to just like read again of develop like the goal of the NGAB is develop policy recommendations on a topic of the board's choice consistent with city council priorities, which are housing, safety, economic development, infrastructure, and environment. Along with basically courting young people and young professionals to the city of Littleton. So I don't know how we want to do this in the past. I feel like it's always good we can start jotting ideas down on a whiteboard and just kind of, we can go group by group or we could just go whatever people have in mind and we can break it up into what groups would be most applicable to later. I think the latter of the two is easier. Just what are ailments or areas in your life that you'd like to see improved upon that you think we could tackle or go after? So, please excuse my probably slightly not super legible handwriting, but what are areas that people, one that for me that we're going to talk about a little bit later is like housing. That's a big thing, especially in the modern age and just in Metro Denver.
Do we just kick off with like housing ideas?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can go into housing ideas, or I'm thinking keeping this higher level right now. What are big topics that we want to maybe tackle, and then we can kind of delve into the weeds after we kind of throw everything up on the wall.
Yeah.
Young family is one that.
Yeah, what particular areas for young families to like schools?
I think more like event based, so like kind of what we're trying to achieve with our Mats on Main and have something a little more family oriented. We focus on like fully kid friendly. It's a park or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think another big thing that comes to mind for me is street safety, which affects everyone in Littleton, but especially young people. Just from my own anecdotal experience of, walking to high school for 4 years and then biking to middle school 3 years before that, so it can be stressful at times.
Yeah. I think kind of along that goes with that jumps to mind for me is like transportation.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people use when I commute, I see people using RT, ACC, and other places around the city. Having reliable and affordable transportation.
I think also engagement in city government like this. Yeah. How can we continue to engage people our age in that?
Anyone else have any things that?
I would say more specific with government engagement, also like just making like young people aware, like this is your city government, this is who your city councilors are, like here are some of the things that, the city government is responsible for as opposed to the state or federal government, just even like when we have our elections, because of course we're in like kind of funky like odd year elections.
Yeah. Do you have anything, Cody or anyone else that wants to?
I think all the ones that I had had pretty much been taken. Transportation, I think, is a big one. And you mentioned that, so we can.
Maybe just overall affordability too. How can we keep local
Yeah.
businesses operating here?
And in addition to like keeping businesses operating, how can we keep it so that people can afford to live here?
I think affordability really has a lot of like housing and transportation costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Does anyone have anything else that jumps to mind or that are big concerns or things?
It's a really good list, all things considered.
Yeah. Sweet. So a thought I have is I'll now kind of like split the board, but then we'll go topic by topic and we can delve a little bit deeper into the things that we might want to work on in each topic. And I view this as like a big brainstorming session, so like whatever you want, and then we'll narrow it down later and have conversations, because realistically, this is a lot of topics to cover and we'll have to whittle down and figure out what areas we want to focus. But just kind of throwing, like I said, as much as we can up here to figure out what are areas that pique people's interest or are of concern. And then once we get the data from our event, we can kind of cross-reference and see where particular areas that might be better to focus on. So we can start with housing. What are things, I mean, I think the first thing in Metro Denver when it comes to housing is the affordability both to rent and to purchase. 'Cause I know Colorado purchasing a home, it's like one of the top 5 most expensive states in the US right now. I know Littleton is a poppin' place for housing, so it's hard to find that.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, interrupt at any point.
So many of these are topics that the council's gonna deal with in the next year in a couple different ways. And so there are, I think having as an independent body, you can make recommendations kind of anytime we want you to focus on this. And we just got the Environmental Stewardship Committee gave us these bajillion recommendations that the city is reacting to. But there'll be, I mean, you can engage by kind of making independent recommendations. You can engage in commenting on things that are ongoing at any time. And you can engage by meeting with other committees and trying to work with them to have kind of joint. I mean, those are a couple different ways that you can think about engaging. And then, gathering other people's input and saying, this is what we're hearing from our committee is also an engage. But there's just a bunch of different ways. And when you get to the end, when I get to my comments, I'll talk about some of the things we're doing already around housing that I think you guys could have some opportunities to talk about. So.
I just have a quick question for you. I know. But you mentioned the Environmental Stewardship Committee, I believe.
That's right.
And their reports, are those available to view on the Littleton government's website?
Well, they are, yes, the place where I would think they would be in some meeting documents. But while you guys are talking, I'll try to find them. But we've had 2 different conversations about them. They made their presentation and gave us their report. And then last night, the city kind of gave us an update on kind of which of their 50 things they talked about, kind of which things are we already working on, which things are we not sure what we're going to do with, and then which things are we going to put off until we hire an environmental sustainability person and then make them. But I'll try to find the documents and I'll try to send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Usually the text or the slideshow for the report that's given to council is included in the meeting documents, and as well as the recording of the meeting as recordings of our meetings are.
Yeah, so just the PDF under the city council meetings, yeah.
But I'll find it because I'm supposed to not interrupt you when I need something to keep you busy. So let me do that.
And to follow up on some of your comments, Robert, I have started to try and engage some of the other ABCs, advisory board commissions. It's just been a little bit slow trying to.
It's super slow.
So that's why I was like, we could do a brainstorming to figure out what we care about.
Absolutely.
And figure out what lenses we want to look through.
Yes, yes, no, absolutely, absolutely.
What is, I guess, to circle back to housing, what are things that people jump out with, like we've already kind of talked about, I can mention affordability, but that's one of our big topics. One thing that I know I've like talked with people, the public, has been the idea of like, what if we got either the city or the county already collects a lot of data on like, what housing do we have in the city, and break it down by single family homes, like townhomes, like multifamily homes, apartment complexes, and just so we could see like, basically what are we starting with, and then what's the occupancy of all these things, do we have a lot of vacancies, do we not? Just kind of get an idea of where we are as a baseline is always, good to know to help the city and the council make recommendations. I know right now there's a lot of large corporations from other states that are interested in purchasing land in Littleton. That's been a very contentious thing, so I would say like a housing survey, just to get like a baseline of where we are and what the city has to offer in terms of housing.
Does the census typically capture that data?
I'm not sure if the census does. I know Arapahoe County does a pretty decent job of capturing data, median income, cost of homes, things like that. So that might be something we could talk to them about, seeing if that's something we could get a report once or twice a year to figure out like what our housing footprint in Littleton looks like.
Right.
I think that's a good like first step. I think affordable housing is like, everybody's for the idea of affordable housing, but it's a tough question to answer because Littleton's a highly desirable area to be and that drives the prices up. But I think like having data like that, you know, kind of shows what the inventory is that we have and what's empty would be helpful in making for the city and making future decisions.
Yeah. I think along with that, sorry, housing's something I have a lot of thoughts on, but I think figuring out like also not only what we have, but what are the needs? Cause I know Littleton has a very rapidly aging population. And it's like, we have a lot of 55+ communities, but as far as I know, we don't have a whole lot of like retirement communities with actual medical care involved. It's more of, here's a 55+ only building. You have mobility issues or need medical care, you gotta figure that out.
There was a little summary of kind of the housing in our community development plan, and I'll send that to Andrew. It has like a page. That's the only thing I've seen so far.
I think as far as housing need, like figuring out, you know, the Denver metro area's housing shortage, like where would be good areas to add more housing within the city of Denver? And I think I believe the city has an affordable housing mandate, and the Tri-Cities Homelessness Initiative have definitely been good steps forward for the city. But then as, you know, Aspen Grove continues to develop more of a mixed use space, and there's that parcel to the south of Mineral Avenue, those are good opportunities being near the Mineral Light Rail Station, but ideally just like seeing that they're done well, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think, how would you want to summarize that?
That is a lot for me.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I guess just, the main two things are like, you know, basically one, locations where we could add more housing, that was kind of, or I guess I had 2 points in that, like,
Yeah,
we kind of yapping on there, but one is, locations where Littleton, you know, is able to add more housing.
yeah,
Be thoughtful about that, and two is, housing near, transit, but, and I think a lot of those, you know, they go best together.
Thinking like strategic housing development to be.
Yeah, and,
application for.
Right, yeah, and so like, you know, there's a lot of developable land around like, the Mineral Avenue Light Rail Station.
Yeah.
Obviously, the city cannot do that, but
Yeah.
we can change like, you know, zoning to help promote that.
yeah, that makes sense. Also, like one of the comments you mentioned is affordable housing right now, that in the Unified Land Use Code, the city mandates 5% of all new developments need to be affordable.
Right, yeah.
Anyone else have any comments or thoughts or things that we should do in a housing framework? I think, I don't know if you remember this from last year, Lauren, but the safe parking initiative. I'm not ever sure. Have you ever heard of that, Robert? Did that ever make it to council officially? Cause I know it was supposed to, but as far as I know, I never, safe parking initiative.
Not something that I'm familiar with, though. But also, I mean, I've only gone to 6 months worth of meetings. So,
That's something I would just put up here for consideration. We could touch base with city officials to see, did that actually go anywhere, or did, for the folks that don't know, safe parking is an initiative that's been done in several other cities across Metro Denver and Colorado, or you partner usually with churches or other entities.
Okay, so we gotta, sorry, then you're talking about for homeless people for parking or not, yes,
Yes.
we did a study session, a joint study session with the city of Sheridan and Inglewood, part of the Tri-Cities Initiative, and heard about that, and I think the organization that we're supporting is pursuing that, so.
Okay,
But it is not, I haven't heard of any action on that in the last 3 or 4 months, but council didn't shoot it down.
okay, cause I was like, I know the NGA, formerly NGAC had a site, old council.
Oh, okay.
So I definitely think that's like, something that'd be worth following up with, seeing
Mhm.
where that is, and if there's anything we could do to.
Sorry, it didn't
No, it's
register.
okay.
Old man, I can, with you guys, I can just totally claim it's old man moment. Only person that can call me on that is Pam.
Sweet.
Sweet, you're old.
I can find why it gets better with age. Does anyone have anything else that we wanna talk about for this before we move on to the next topic? Sweet. Snap a photo real quick. Move on. So events are like community building for young families. I think first thing to put is make sure Matt's on Main is inclusive of those folks.
Actually, interesting. You have the family section.
Yeah.
Section, I think that would get.
I think if, I remember back to a couple meetings or kind of, and, correct me if, I'm wrong, but like the consensus we kind of came to is having 3 different like public event type things over the next year for those 3 different groups. Or possibly, not entirely necessarily contained in 2024, because that is a lot, but, over the coming, couple of years. But so Matt's on Main is more geared toward like that young professional, and then I think like the young family event could be like, like a day in the park type of thing.
Yeah.
And then we could gather input from parents and then also have, activities and like stuff to do for kids while their parents are there.
Do something like a field day,
Yeah,
Yeah.
something exactly that type of thing.
I like that a lot.
I feel like in general, Littleton does this pretty well, all things considered. There's a lot of events in the summertime, you know, there's a lot of local concerts and there's the meet greet meets and a lot of those are family friendly. The museum has a lot of family friendly things. So I wouldn't say this is a particular topic where Littleton's like majorly lacking
Yeah.
compared to other municipalities, but it can always be improved.
Yeah.
And you know, one thing we could do, that your comment just kind of made me think of, so thank you, but, for like, if we didn't wanna have like our own full event, cause it's a lot of planning, but still want to gather, still wanna gather public input, is, having like surveys available at like Littleton Museum, or like, the Beavis Public Library when people come by, or at, I know like there are like, this summer, there are public events for like concerts or like meetings in city council, so like, I don't know, if those would be good places to gather input from.
I definitely think that's a good idea. After we have our Matt's on main event, we could propagate a survey in other places.
Right.
So there's a continuous. Just gonna note down that Littleton does this pretty well already.
I think one advantage in like building on that third point is that if you think about it, like a young family probably has like grandparents that join them, so it really becomes like a generational thing. So
Yeah.
you have a really good opportunity with like district surveys and kind of leveraging all the other events that are put on to get more people, another demographic here to be interested in the city as well.
Yeah.
And then thinking further, family want time away or grandparents want time together, that drives them in to be like, oh, let's go to the concert park.
Yeah.
So I think we really just make a good push to have voices heard. I think that's where we can leverage all the other things that we're doing as well.
I guess following up with that, it makes sense, or would y'all want to have a representation at any of these events, whether it's meet greet meets or little jams or things like that? I know there's the next one's coming up pretty soon, but like looking towards the middle and later summer.
I think that'd be a great idea. I think one of our next points that we're gonna come up on this kind of blending is government engagement. There are probably a lot of people in Littleton who, don't know who their city councilor is or what they do. There probably been more people who don't know that we exist, right?
Yes.
So, telling them, one, we exist, two, what do you want to see us do? What are your, needs and issues as a, 16 to 36-year-old in Littleton, right? Yeah, but I think it'd be great to piggyback off of one of those things.
Yeah.
And have a couple of us show up.
I guess I said that. Just about the same. Anyone would like to add to this before we move on to the next? part? The city council has already started, wheels in motion on a lot of things around street safety and bike and pedestrian safety. I know we were able to come this time, but we're looking to have, some folks from the city come talk about this in future meetings of ours, just to get a little bit education and background and figure out, a look at the plans that the city is working on for safer streets, especially. I know a big emphasis has been around school zones.
Right.
So that's where a lot of parents and young children walk to and from school.
And I think, like with street safety, there's been a lot of good improvement, like with those 3 raised crosswalks in downtown Littleton now. And I really like the new, proposals for increasing, changing, I guess, the street design on Main Street and Alamo and Prince in the downtown area. That could really help with, improving street safety in the downtown. Seeing more of that in parts of Littleton other than downtown is also something I would like to see more of.
Okay. And that with improvements across the city, not just downtown.
I think something that would be interesting bringing forward would be considering repainting bike lanes. And even, I know when I lived in Ireland, they would paint the bike lane like a ridiculous green or white.
Yeah,
You're like, so you knew if
the
you were
entire
in
lane too, yeah.
And I don't know, I think that could be something that would be interesting. I don't know whether that's not around the whole city, but around school zones or high pedestrian areas or traffic zones. Just really raise that awareness, because we have some of those indicator poles, but if we could pay more attention to that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, and I think like, Littleton's not a huge city, so there's not like a ton of money to like, go
Yeah.
pour in concrete for a new
Yeah.
protected bike lane. But, one thing that I've seen near the heritage areas, they've started to put up those flex posts around the crossings between the bike trails.
Yeah.
And I know there's one on Eladi and one on Windermere, I believe. Or it might be Prince, but it's one of the two. But having more of those around bike lanes would be a less expensive way to just
Yeah.
add a bit of a barrier between.
You don't
maybe the
necessarily
traffic and
need it
bike
everywhere,
traffic.
but just at major intersections.
Yeah.
At major intersections.
Let me write that down.
I was looking up it's the Safer Streets Littleton Initiative.
Yes, yeah, safer streets.
Name.
for the folks from the city.
So they are restriping crosswalks, but I like your suggestion about the bike lanes too. I think that's.
I think along with that, like having proper crosswalks, a lot of places, there's a lot of intersections where it's just like, kind of walk at your own leisure and pay attention, but like having, or it's just dotted lines or whatever, having formal crosswalks, I think would caution drivers a little more in certain areas.
And now, one of the things you could do is ask the transportation staff to give you an update on this, on the safer streets. And kind of how many things they've put out. One of the interesting things to me is, when I first got on the Transportation Mobility Board, we got a report on the little flags that they put on Big Lee Gulch Trail. And what they found was that the average speeds actually increased after they put those flags up. And so when they're up the first month or two, people are confused and then they slow down. But after that first month or two, then they sped back up. Now, speeds are a proxy for safety, so it may not be the exact same thing. But that might be an interesting thing for you guys to ask for an update. Just kind of how many they put out, where they went, learned, what data they're collecting.
You could do like a formal bike safety or anything at Heritage.
Not that I'm aware of. I do know just anecdotally there, like our bike rack would usually have, probably about 100 or so bikes on it. That would drop off quite a bit in the winter, but during, tail end of the school year on both ends, it was quite a lot of kids who were biking in. But, having that trail there that's separate from car traffic really, I think, helped with safety quite a bit.
Yeah, totally. Just wondering if there's an opportunity for a street safety EDU or something.
Yeah.
Or like a sticker you put on your bike that says like I'm bike safe or something.
Well, even just learning like bike signals, cause I
Yeah,
didn't
that's good.
learn those as a child and I still like don't really know them.
Yeah.
So even just like having that education piece in high school is huge.
Or like where your reflection points are to be seen.
Yeah. I know in the past, like Littleton PD has done stuff like that, but I think taking it to the schools would be much more beneficial for those students, because a lot of high schoolers are not gonna call away from their house to go talk to police about bike safety. Other things that people have jumped to mind. Snap a photo. That's good too. The first thing that comes to mind, kind of what you're talking about, is I know downtown Littleton is being redesigned to be less car centric, but also find other areas in the city where that's possible and or. Cause I know there's a sub area plan being developed for Littleton Boulevard. Is that something that should be included there? Or are there other parts of the city that there'd be an emphasis on multimodal transportation? Like you said, the bike trail would make it much safer for students to commute to and from Heritage. They don't have to interact with cars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think transportation goes along a lot with street safety, so.
Yeah.
We have those next to each other. One thing, I mean, you mentioned that Littleton Boulevard, the street plan there, I'm blanking the exact word you used. But having an update on that would be interesting to see what the city's planning.
So I think the current idea, and I think it'll be important to make sure you know, there'll be a presentation in August from the, with the planning, with staff, kind of bringing the final plan based on the feedback that we've received. But I don't know the exact, let me look and see if I know that. If I can find the date for that. And then, sorry, I'm gonna talk more, okay?
Yeah.
So the big, the big thing that governments do is pass budgets, like budget, I'm being a teacher now. I've given this lecture, budgets are moral documents because they reflect the true values of the city. And so this year, when I first got on the council, we passed a budget where we put a lot of investment in increasing the personnel in the city and the staffing. But for the next 3 or 4 years, the real action in the budget is going to be around capital. And capital is really anything that lasts more than 3 or 4 years. But it's really going to be roads, streets, downtown Littleton, and that's where we're going to be doing a lot of work, I think, over the next couple of years. And it's super interesting because essentially, I'm geeking out, but we didn't have it. Our capital budget 10 years ago was $1 million or $2 million. And because of passing 3A, we're able to leverage that money. And now our capital budget is, well, 3A is only like $15 million. We're getting all these matching grants. So our capital budget is $50 million because of the matching grants that we're getting. So it also is kind of, what is the decision-making process around capital? Some of it's driven by the council, some of it's driven by staff, which is completely okay, I'm not. And some of it's driven by where can we get matching grants to make it, to spend our dollars. I'm gonna just look at my Twitter now for a while.
Is that presentation to city council?
Yeah,
Okay, in August.
in August. And then I'm gonna look, I have city council upcoming agenda meeting, and I'm gonna look at that right now.
I think it'd be beneficial maybe if we're interested to get folks from the city making that presentation, talk to us, they're prepared next month, then maybe we could write a letter with our thoughts and comments to the city council before they hear it and make their considerations.
August 27th, the preferred alternative will be presented. That's the current plan.
This might be a question for the Transportation Safety Board, but does anyone know if there's an update? They were proposing, I think it was called like a quad road at Mineral in Santa Fe.
So the quad road is moving forward. And so the quad road is an effort to reduce traffic on Mineral and Santa Fe. And essentially it is gonna make it so no one turns left at Mineral and Santa Fe. You have to either go past and then you can turn left, or you do a U-turn. It's quite a thing, but that is gonna start soon. And it's partially the pressure to get that started is because we have so many grants that are paying for it that we either have to start work on it or need the grants back.
I can't imagine what the heck they're gonna do with that intersection if they're gonna build more, whatever, housing or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that's the big pushback we're getting, sorry.
Very good.
We're getting all this pushback around the Costco, right? So the Costco, the shopping center that's gonna go in at where Lumen is up off of, so if you go further east on Mineral, there's the old Lumen facility, the big old, so that's gonna turn into a shopping center, and that shopping center is gonna have a Costco and up to 2 other medium to big box stores. And so a lot of people are critical of that because Costco is gonna bring traffic. I'm hoping with the quad road, traffic won't get any worse than it currently is. But I'm very excited about having a Costco because I like Costco. And B,
Mixed feelings for sure.
the big, the main, right now, actually, our biggest source of tax revenue is online shopping. And then our second biggest source of tax revenue are the big boxes that are Home Depot and Lowe's. So.
Why is that? Is that because like any homeowners taxes go to the county?
No, well, so all of our money, 80% of our money comes from sales taxes. And so as a city, places that generate a lot of sales taxes give us a lot of money. And the big places are Home Depot and Lowe's. But the city council last night voted to increase the hours for the dispensaries. And part of our reasoning for that is that is also a big source of, we get $1.3 million a year out of the dispensaries. So, but that tax money is what we're gonna use to do all the environmental stewardship plan, to redo the medians, to redo downtown. So that, I think we have some good uses for that money. And so I'm excited about supporting those commercial ventures. But Mineral is our worst traffic problem, for sure.
One other thing with transportation is, that kind of segues into this, is like public transportation. Because like Mineral used to have a bus that went down it, and Mineral's a relatively dense corridor, especially with jobs. There just being all that retail, there needs to be people to staff that. And the bus that went down Mineral was cut during the pandemic by RTD. So obviously that's, an RTD issue, not a Littleton issue. But two things that have come up, RTD had their whole new transportation vision plan of gradual changes to their service that they want to make. And they just released, I was gonna talk about this in my reports section, but I guess I'll say now. But they just announced, so one of their planned changes for September 2024 is the Zero bus that runs down Broadway will be truncated in Inglewood, and it will be Zero B from Inglewood to Highland Branch. Which I think could be a good or bad thing.
Yeah.
The big question for me is just, currently frequency is every 30 minutes on that road. So if that's reduced to every 60, that would be a big hit for Broadway.
Yeah, the same of I've taken RTD on bowls, and it's like you sit there and wait, and sometimes the bus is on time, sometimes it's not, and you just waiting there basically in a field.
Well, the one on Bowles and even on Federal now, I think post-pandemic is once an hour. So like
Yeah,
if you're coming from downtown and you time your connection right, you're fine. But if you don't time your connection, you're waiting there for an hour. So it's like a big discouraging factor for a lot of people to take the bus as opposed to if you had like every 30 or every 15 in peak hours or something like that, it could increase public transit usage.
Yeah, I think it would be definitely be worth reviewing, because I also think like Littleton Boulevard has a ton of traffic that it warrants a bus from downtown Littleton all the way down, because there's a ton of shops and restaurants.
Right. Well, two things I know they included in their like plan was to make the bus on Federal and on the 66 and Littleton Boulevard go from every 60 to every 30 minutes. But I think one thing we could do is, talk to the RTD board reps for Littleton to see
Yeah.
that they're not in the next service change to see like, could that be something that happens within 2025?
Yeah, that's something we could work for
Right.
next year. Yeah.
And also making sure when, the zero is truncated and becomes 0B through Littleton, it stays at 30 minutes, it's not reduced to 60.
Yeah.
They have not listed that, their September changes, so.
They just listed that they're changing. it
That
to
they're changing the
0B
but, yeah, but not the frequency.
frequency.
Random curiosity, how does RTD get their funding?
Some of it comes from the city, right? I
Not,
mean,
not from the city, but I do know that one of the things that they're thinking about putting on the ballot is a deep roofing. So they have a regional tax that I don't know whether it's a sales tax or I'll look it up, or property tax, but because of Tabor sets a limit on how much you can raise and how much you can spend. And they're bumping up against their Tabor limit. And so, and debrucing will allow them to keep the money that's already been. So there's a conversation going on right now about whether RTD can debruce. I'll look that up.
I think it's sales.
I think you're right, but I think it's a regional.
Sales tax within the jurisdictions that RTD serves?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Curious.
Sales tax.
I think, like you said, that's a big limitation for a lot of folks using public transit.
Right.
So I live in downtown Littleton, and a lot of times go down Littleton Boulevard to go to that Kroger. King Super, sorry.
It is a Kroger.
It is Kroger. But I was like, if I could just hop on a bus, I would much rather do that than have to drive my car and fight traffic.
But then, yeah, if it takes you an hour to get
Yeah,
round trip,
yeah, it's not worth it.
Or if you're gonna have to wait like 45 minutes to get the next one coming
Yeah.
back.
I also think that could be beneficial for like with the redevelopment of Littleton Boulevard, there's a lot of restaurants and things popping up that almost be like an extension of downtown Littleton.
yeah, and there's no transit on that. So I mean, from downtown until you get to Broadway, so if you wanna go to anything and you don't have a car, you pretty much gotta walk.
Yeah.
70% sales tax, 25% grants, and 5% fares.
thanks for checking.
I'm here to serve.
Does anyone have anything else they want to add? Sweet. Not before. Government engagement and education. I think kind of like, right off of what like Ricky said earlier, I think including this as a part of some of the, like the mats on Main, let people know who we are, cause like, don't just collect information, but make them aware of what the NGAB is and what we do and who we're trying to represent.
I think this kind of goes what we talked about earlier with the like young families engagement bullet point, but it's pretty much, going up to more events.
Yeah,
Maybe going to one of those summer concerts in July and, you could even just get like a fold out table and, a sign with like, this is who we are, and then put a survey. Just meet some people.
I can work with Chris on getting some like flyers or a banner and stuff worked out for us for those, because I'm sure it won't be too hard. Get something put together and printed at the city. Yeah.
So are we trying to look at this from like, how can next gen be more engaged, or how can we, I guess, have more presence? Are you looking at that as the city as a whole? Like, how can the city engage its citizens?
Well, I was saying sort of like what Jack said, like our presence at, let's say, summer jams, we bring a table. Or if we want to go to one of the farmers markets or something, just have a little bit more broader presence and bring education to the city about what we're doing. At least my thoughts. You have a different opinion.
That's great. We tabled at Western Welcome Week a couple years ago, and that went
Yeah.
great. That was wonderful. So if we could do that again.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things coming up in the summer and fall. It's a big time for the city, especially for a lot of tourists or people from nearby cities come for those events.
Yeah, and I do think, so not only presence at city events, but consistent presence.
Yeah.
Because we've had it, but it hasn't been incredibly consistent, and you might have one or two good conversations, you might not. It's really just that consistency and that exposure. And what I found is that we had a lot of great conversations, but it wasn't really anybody that it wasn't really from a recruitment
Yeah,
standpoint. It was just like, wow, that's really cool that Littleton does that.
that's how I feel it should be more of an educational / figuring out what are people's pain points in the city.
Yeah.
That's how we know obviously our friends and the people in our lives. But getting a broader reach to other people we might not interact with.
Okay, so yeah, so I guess presence with the goal of, really not with the goal of recruitment, but more just the goal of like engagement and
Yeah.
awareness. Obviously, recruiting is always great, but
Yeah.
One thing with government engagement I'd be curious about is, does Arapahoe Community College have any type of like voter registration drive with the election coming up in November? Just since, youth voter turnout tends to be the lowest among any age group.
Or I don't even know, does Littleton Public Schools do anything like that for a lot of the seniors who turn 18?
Not that I'm aware of. But I've not looked comprehensively either.
I don't remember us doing anything about that. I think the big thing is you can register when you sign up for your driver's license.
Yeah, and that definitely helps. It's
Our-
an opt-out system, which is great.
That led to, that leads to certain speakers at our meetings claiming that there are people who are illegally registered because they're too young. Can you clarify that?
Same.
Along with that, I was like, would it make sense, or do you think it would benefit to like go have educational sessions either at ACC or LPS to like talk more about what the city does?
I think that would definitely be beneficial. We could also definitely reach out to like government or civics.
Yeah, so
teachers
my
as well
thought,
to
I was
see
like,
if
that'd
we
be a
could,
great, like,
spend a
on a
class
Friday,
with it,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like, at least in my education, it was always mostly at federal or state level, never anything at a county or local level.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to maybe email some of the teachers at ACC or or at the Heritage or Littleton high schools and see if we can make a presentation and one or two of us could go and talk to some students about that.
Does anyone else have any thoughts or on any of these, or on the topic of government engagement / education? Our last and certainly not least, affordability. The thought to me, is similar to like with the housing, I think it would. One thing, that would be the beneficial tool, I'm not sure how. Much the city could use it, but figure out like where are people's pain points with affordability. Is it their groceries getting out of control, is it car insurance, is it all of the above, or where? Where are the worst areas, and what areas could maybe the city try and help through legislation or different things? But I'm getting like a baseline. I know it's different for every family and for every person of what's the most expensive things that they're dealing with. Their multi-budget.
Right. Um. One thing I'd be curious about is I know there's the like Littleton is the like shop local rewards program. And I know groceries are a big expense for just people and have gone up quite a bit recently, but I'm not sure if the Safeway and the two King Supers are
Yeah,
participating or if they would be eligible to participate.
yeah.
But I think if they could be incorporated into that, that would be a big helping point for groceries for a lot of people.
Yeah, you said it's Shop Littleton.
It's yeah, I think it's shop Littleton shop local.
Is it
rewards.
open rewards? I had the app downloaded and then
Yeah, I think it is.
yeah. So I remember seeing that in the Littleton report.
I think also one thing along those lines that might be worth advocating for is, I know Safeway and Supers are actually trying to merge, like across the US, and like, in my opinion, that's not gonna help prices, but.
Lack of competition, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that's something we would want
It's
to
not
advocate
it's
for or
SEC.
against. I definitely think that's something, at least I'm gonna note that down, that I think it's worth maybe having a further conversation about.
Yeah.
It's worth raising the awareness for.
Yeah,
others.
it's worth raising,
Um,
'cause I feel like a lot of people aren't aware of that fact. You said it was the shop Littleton Shop Local program?
yeah, it's Littleton shop local
Littleton.
rewards is what it says on the city website. Oh, hold
I
on.
know the app you download is called Open Rewards.
Right.
Cause I'm in it right now trying to log in. Oh, I'm sure this isn't like an original idea or anything, and I know that there was some during COVID, but what kind of grants could the city offer to incentivize certain local businesses?
Yeah.
Especially on Main Street, you know, especially as many have shuttered their doors in the last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the key things, like, I mean, the bigger grocery stores, like, all that's fine, but really getting more local businesses on Main Street. And I mean, as it's not always necessarily synonymous with affordability, but just a more vibrant business scene and providing opportunities to those businesses.
Yeah, I want to encourage local businesses to want to open up in Littleton, you know, if the track record's like, okay, shut down in 2 years, they're not gonna wanna do that, or they can't afford the rent.
I know the city in the past has provided like basically tax relief for different businesses that are I feel like, sort of like for the first 5 years, they'll essentially cut tax rate for past a certain point so that you're not.
Yeah,
So like incentivizing businesses to open in Littleton.
well, and that could mean too, identifying what kinds of businesses do we want to bring here? What's Main Street lacking right now, you know?
Going back to the Kroger Albertson, or this merger, which is King Soopers and Safeway's parent companies. Just from looking at some Denver ABC7 articles in the FTC real quick. It looks like the Federal Trade Commission in February sued to block that merger with the backing of Attorney General Phil Weiser. But I mean, not that it would change the world, but I think if like this committee wants to do like a joint letter or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, in
More
support of
voices
that.
always helps.
Sure, right, yeah.
I like that idea. Alright, can you remind me again, it was the Littleton, or Shop Littleton Local?
The app is called Littleton Open Rewards, or is it just Open Rewards?
Open rewards.
Open Rewards in the site on Littleton's government website, it says Littleton Shop Local Rewards.
I definitely think that's worth including and looking at some investigation, like you said, of like, are there any other businesses in the city would be interested in joining, and or we get some of the grocery stores to join so that
Right.
maybe we can help make groceries a little more. Is there anything else folks have for the topic or want to include?
Covers it for me.
Okay. I believe the next topic on the agenda is housing in Littleton, which we kind of already covered in some regard. I guess, so I don't want to beat a dead horse. Is there anything anyone would like to talk about? Because a lot of the stuff that we discussed was things that I was wanting to kind of cover
On housing.
on housing.
So with the city council is having a debate right now about our housing policy around the missing middle. And there's clear disagreement on the council. So the missing middle is kind of a multifamily housing that is bigger than a single family house and smaller than a medium-sized apartment complex. So it's everything, it's duplexes, it's triplexes, it's up to, I think quadplexes. And it can be new builds or conversions, like converting old mansions into, and it includes the ADUs, which is part of the new requirements from the state legislature. So, but there's a disagreement on the council of kind of how far forward to lean into like duplexes. So some members of the council want people to be able, if you own property, you can build a duplex anywhere in the city essentially. Other members of the council are a little more hesitant. They want to make sure if you're in certain, most neighborhoods, most of the single family home neighborhoods, that you would have to get approval by the planning commission and kind of fly it by them. And so the expectation is that the city council is going to move forward with new zoning regulations around allowing missing middle to become more liberal. Liberal is not the right word, more, yeah, liberal is the right word, like, but with a small L, not a big L. And so that is someplace where I think you really can engage. There's going to be, and it's going to, this process is going to go over for the next year. Because part of it is really this whole big conversation of what are the tools that we have to do affordable housing in the city. And so zoning is one of our tools. And so and there's definitely, we had some strong, we had some strong disagreements on the council around kind of how quickly to move on that just yesterday, where some people want to move as quickly as possible and other people want to move a little bit more slowly. And so that's absolutely a place for you guys to engage in a kind of minor slice of housing, but it's going to be one of the tools we have. We don't have a lot of tools. And it's really right now, it's around where will we allow people to build these missing middle units.
And are you guys considering any duplex to be missing middle? Cause I know there's duplexes in the Denver metro area that go for over $1 million, you know, those luxury duplexes. So
Yeah.
it's not always a
It's
missing middle.
not clear to me what tool, and I'm still learning, but it's not clear to me what tools we have to regulate the price of what is being built, other than us building stuff ourselves through South Metro Housing. Where if we build it ourselves through South Metro Housing, then we have a lot of intent to regulate the price. We have a lot of capacity to regulate the price and make it affordable. It's not clear to me what tools we have for other new builds, other than this housing the 5% rule at 5%. It's the affordable, inclusionary housing ordinance. Dang it, what is the I? Inclusionary, where we say you have to have 5% are either affordable or you give us a payment in lieu of affordability. And that payment in lieu is how we support South Metro Housing. We gather that money and give it to them, and then they're able to leverage it through grants. So, but that is something I really encourage you, because there are members of the council who are not happy with me right now. I was more of a go slower than some people.
Do you know, is that, you said it's gonna take place for the whole year, or, you know?
Yeah, so the disagreement we're having is whether we'll finalize the policy at the end of next year and end of 2025 or the beginning of 2026.
Right.
So that's the.
Gotcha.
I have a few contacts over at Habitat for Humanity. Would you guys be interested if I tried to see if if they want to come to a meeting and share how they've impacted Littleton? Because there's been a lot of Habitat homes in the area. I don't know if that would be.
I think that would be good. I mean, given the timing on this, it sounds like we do have some time, but I mean, I think like housing and like, I mean, it makes sense for us to concentrate on this missing middle piece if it's something that city council is gonna be working on, so that we're providing some guidance from the young person's point of view on it. But I mean, I think that said, the good thing is we have some time and could really develop something out in a meeting or so.
If you have, I think that's a great idea, but I would have them come jointly with South Metro Housing.
Well, what's so staggering about that? In the last meeting I had, because I've met with them from two of my other jobs. The missing, I mean, truly Habitat is serving the middle. And one of the biggest takeaways that I got from my last meeting with them is Habitat's really evolved as an organization with who they're serving. You know, it used to be like, people that were really down on their luck, right? But now it's like, it truly is like, I mean, I wanna say I heard the very big majority of the Habitat homes in Littleton went to educators, to teachers. So, and that's not really, I think, what we maybe grew up thinking, like that's who Habitat serves. So I think just even knowing, like, it really is like a lot of people our age and missing middle, so.
I believe there's an initiative right now to turn a lot of the Section 8 housing into permanent housing with Habitats, like revamp it and sell it as affordable housing.
Yeah, South Metro Housing, their housing strategy used to be owning houses and they were distributed around the city. And so because of changes at the federal level, they've sold all those houses to Habitat, but there is still a set of houses at Emerald Point that have not been converted, that are sitting empty. And so, but they did sell all their, and so now South Metro Housing their strategies are either to build new or to buy existing multifamily housing. I think having Habitat come would be, it's a great idea.
Okay, yeah, I'll email my contacts.
Yes, yeah, please do.
I'll let you know.
Also, one thing of like when this conversation, about some of the housing and things was brought up in front of the city council, Gretchen, one of the city council members mentioned, one thing that kind of sometimes gets forgotten is like renters. And I know the city doesn't do anything currently, but the county, is supposed to have a program to support like rent assistance and different things like that. And at least from my understanding, it's not been super great. And seeing if maybe the city could partner with the county to make that more readily accessible to people in the city of Littleton. A lot of times having people who are educated and informed and can help you do all that paperwork, jump through all the hoops makes it a lot easier on the people trying to do that. Because the renters are a large majority of the folks who live in the city of Littleton. Just to make sure that we're covering all the folks in both people who are renting and the missing middle and people who are maybe trying to buy a home.
And with that missing middle piece, from my understanding, middle refers to density, not necessarily price, if I'm not mistaken. Right, it's like denser than a single family home, but like not an apartment complex necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know. That makes sense to me, but I feel stupid that I don't know. That's a good.
Personally with that piece, I just would like to like express support for increasing, allowing, townhomes and duplexes, things like that within the city of Littleton. Because to me, it's a very good way to, increase the density of the city and thus, lower home cost, by increasing supply. But it's not necessarily, turning Littleton to like a downtown type area, right? It's still very suburban, but if a row of single family homes becomes eventually a row of townhomes with, 3 units in each, now you've tripled the housing stock, but it's very, it's still very suburban in its character. So to me, that's a good compromise between, people who don't want the city's like, suburban character, some have said like to change, but still allowing, increased housing as more people are moving to the Denver metro area and as housing prices in Littleton, and the Denver metro area as a whole continue to rise. But that's my personal thinking with, why I would support that idea.
Right. That's another important consideration. By the way, I'm glad you brought up the character aspect because it seems like that's another issue that people generally have with the whole issue of, do we want to add duplexes, townhomes, triplexes? It's that you're balancing the affordability aspect with the character of the community aspect. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's certainly something worth considering and having further discussion on.
Yes. And does the city, I know we have South Metro housing options, but is there any like part of the city that focuses on housing and development at all? Any like,
That's our, South Metro is our,
South Metro is the only tool, okay.
and it's a tool, we're one of the first suburban cities to get a housing authority, and so it's been some of it, which part where our city was relatively progressive when they founded it 30 or 40 years ago.
I definitely think having them come talk and figure out, cause I know like you, Robert, sort of at a high level, like it's mostly purchasing existing properties or new builds, but seeing like what other areas are there potential for expansion or ways that we could support or advocate on their behalf.
I'll also add that, there are some teams, community development is one that comes to mind. We have awareness when when a developer is looking at coming in and building a spate of new homes. We don't always control that conversation in terms of what their design elements are or what the price points will eventually be, but we do at least have some folks in the city who are aware of things that are bubbling up, and can monitor. Also, Arapahoe County does have a housing navigation service. It is targeted at individuals and families who are either experiencing homelessness or are at risk of becoming homeless. So it might not be quite the sort of housing navigation service that you might be thinking of, but there is something like that. I happen to know that because they have office hours at the Beavis Library.
Thank you.
I'll have to get that for you.
You can look on the website.
Can?
You said it was,
I just have my phone.
you said it was Arapahoe County Housing, what was it?
Housing Navigator.
Housing. So I think it would also be useful to have them come and speak, because they're a little bit larger than just the city of Littleton, the entire county.
Housing Navigation Services. Next day, Monday, June 10th, from 11 to 2:30. So it's Mondays from 11 to 2:30. Where in the library?
They're in one of our meeting rooms, one of our study spaces on the main level.
So, does anyone else have any thoughts on housing in Littleton? Discussion? Okay, sweet, then we can move on to we work for the NGAB sponsored public event. So for me, one of the things that was important is we kind of finalize on a date and time so we could start getting information out if we want to get it published in a Littleton report and on Littleton social media. That takes about 6 weeks. So we need to start finalizing on really date, time, and then a name and kind of, we want a little excerpt or a description of what our event is going to be. I know we had talked in the past of kind of piggybacking on the Town Hall Arts Center gala or fundraiser thing they do on August 24th. And then just instead of they do it in the afternoon and evening, us having something at like 9 or 10 in the morning. I still really like that idea on the 24th. But if anyone has any other times, because the city would already be closing down the road, they just shut it down a little bit earlier for that segment of Main Street.
Personally, I think that's the best time to do it, so we should go ahead on the 24th and start seeing about if we could. I think the original idea was close down an hour or 2 hours before the original scheduled closing time, so we could use that space.
Yes. What time do you guys want that event to start? Because I think their event is in the afternoon / evening, but talking with Mike and other people in the city, like they could shut it down whenever, because they're gonna have to shut it down.
What's the name of the August 24th again?
It's the Town Hall Arts Center Gala or
So I'll look that up.
something somewhere. It's one of their big fundraisers.
Sorry, I'm like really in the dark because I mocked out of my email and I wasn't here last month. So are we just know we want to have an event that day, but we haven't brainstormed.
It's kind of, I guess, honed in on the idea of like, it's been the name that I've heard the Flex Sisters use is Matt's on Main.
Oh, okay, so this is Matt's on Main.
Yes, yeah, so it's the idea of, I'm not sure if it's yoga or bar or something,
Yeah.
some sport athletic event like that.
Ballet Physique is gonna do it?
Yes, Ballet Physique. Where we'll have a portion of Main Street shut down. And they'll come do like a 1 hour class for whoever wants to come, and then that would be an opportunity for us to have a little stand and like gather information and basically try and like have surveys to fill out and get data for people and also educate. And then Mackenzie was really like the idea of if we could get local businesses were interested to whether offer a brunch special or something in downtown Littleton to keep people around for more of the day in downtown Littleton. To make it like
It's called the Ovation Gala.
the Ovation Gala.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website. It says it starts at 5:30 PM.
Okay.
So,
I'm sure if they're already gonna shut it down for the gala, they'd be willing to shut it down.
right, so if we
anytime.
want it to start at maybe 4 o'clock or 4:30.
I think the conversations earlier were about in the morning. so.
Yeah, the idea was like in the morning before it gets too hot.
That's also a good point. Is there something going on in that area between, when our morning event would be in between the evening?
No, they'd probably just shut it down at 7 or 8 in the morning for whenever we wanted it, and it'd just say shut down instead of them doing like a midday shutdown.
Okay.
So I know talking with Mike, he said it's really, if they're already shutting down the road, they extend the permit forward a couple hours, it's not too big of a deal.
Okay, yeah,
But what time do y'all think is best? 9, 10? I don't know.
Earlier, like 9 probably.
Okay.
Emailing Khaki, I know she said 9 AM, but I don't have a particular preference myself.
Okay, cause I've heard that 9 floated around. I just wanted to double check.
What
So
time do the businesses in that area open up around 9?
It all kind of depends on what business.
yeah,
I don't know. I still am not ready to talk about Nook shutting down, but they were open pretty early.
I was so sad when I saw that.
I know. So I don't really know what's open there and when.
I know Grand Station does brunch, but I think they're open pretty early.
Oh, yeah. So has this already been like locked in with the ballet physique? Like they're in and it's moving
Yes,
forward?
yeah. Mackenzie had already gotten a thumbs up from, I think their owner / main instructor that she was gonna teach a class. She just needed, a time and a date to make sure she could keep that available for us. And we made some subcommittees for like, one team that was gonna work on creating the survey, one team that was gonna work on like seeing if businesses wanna get involved, one team that was gonna work on like communication. Making folks aware of everything that's happening.
Plug me in, Marguerite.
Yeah.
Just let me know.
So I think the big thing with the subcommittees too is they are more so limited to 2 people each, because if it's
Yeah.
3, then we would have to then make the subcommittee meetings, like posted a day in advance on the city government's website.
Yes.
So
Which would just slow down the process.
committee-less. That's okay too. You can't email me anyway.
Yeah.
It can be the committee one.
And with that, are y'all good with the name of Matt's on Main? I really like that.
I like it, I think it's.
So I was like, once I heard that from Khaki, I was like, that works, love it.
I'm a big alliteration fan, so.
Matt's on Main, sponsored by, or I don't know. Somehow we gotta try to throw our name in somewhere.
Yeah.
Physique.
Yes.
Um,
Do we have is there a logo for the NGAP? I don't think so, right?
Not that I know of.
No.
So I have seen I was first selected for this committee, I looked at like, there's a ton of old packets and stuff from 2020 through 2022 that are linked on the page, and we have this like little logo with a leaf type of thing right there.
Okay.
And like best we had is we made a couple of like 1-pagers over the years. We could conjure something up from that, but I don't.
Yeah, I like the idea of having something like that.
We could just reuse that logo or, something like
Yeah.
that.
And see if Ballet Physique and then work with the city to create an ad or an article to include in the Littleton report and on social media.
Yeah.
Or you could head that communication.
I believe,
I believe there is a community.
not to like trample on that, but I believe the communications committee is
Yeah,
Jackie
Jackie.
and myself,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
Then Andrew and Mackenzie are doing business, and then
yeah.
you and Cody are, survey.
Surveys.
I'll just show up. Find you in bar, Main Street.
That's one thing I'm not sure that we should get some clarity from either Khaki or Mackenzie of like, is this bar, is this ballet, is this whatever?
It's mostly just gonna be Matt Pilates that they'll call bar, just from
Okay.
experience. It'll be bar light, but there will not be equipment.
And then I think one thing that I feel like I should just mention is like, we should make sure we have like, just like a table there with like, to put the survey stuff on.
Oh, yes.
I assumed is where we were, but I just hadn't.
Yes,
heard
yeah,
anything say it
yeah,
aloud, so, to clarify.
And another thing with that, was brought up to me by Mackenzie is, the instructor from Valley Physique requested that we either have a podium, or like a stage or something so that they could be a little bit higher so that everyone can see them. So I don't know if, do you know if the city would have anything like that? Or even maybe just like a PA system that we could, like a temporary PA system so that people could hear.
I'm sure we do, I could take a look.
Yeah, we could look into it. Where my head's going is the space allowance on the sidewalk in front of Town Hall or Center, if there, how much room there would be.
Oh, well,
If I'm forgetting the location, probably.
it's gonna be on Main Street, but they're gonna have the road shut down, so it's gonna be in the street.
I forgot that. Thank you for.
Yes, yeah, no worries.
We'll talk more about that.
Okay.
Does Ballet Physique have stuff? Because they might have speaker and a mic type of situation. They
Yeah.
might not have the podium, but.
Yeah, cause I know that was what Mackenzie had really emphasized, is that we need some type of elevated surface for them to, the instructor to be on. Sweet, and then moving on to kind of the next segment of that, is like the subcommittee.
All subcommittees.
If anyone has anything to discuss or convey. I know I can start from the business side. Me and Mackenzie really haven't, we had talked about, reaching out to the Littleton Business Chamber. I know she specifically knows some of the owners of the businesses on Main Street, Littleton. But we haven't engaged that yet, cause we wanted to firm up when the date and time was before we start engaging people on that front. So we don't have to tell them too many things and have to come back and verify. But that's really, we kind of just held off, but I can let her know that we can move forward with what we
Is this gonna be the week after Western Welcome Week? It's usually like right on my birthday, which is the 15th.
Either a week or 2 weeks after.
I think if we table at Western Welcome Week, this would be a great thing to come out here next Saturday for.
Yeah, it looks like Western Welcome.
It's August 9th through 18th.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
So that's kind of cool. We can definitely be promoting that.
Look at, yeah, that table there.
What's the bike race?
Criterion?
Yeah.
That's in August too, I think.
That is
Yeah,
sometime.
I think it's early August, like. No, sure. It was the 3rd, so.
You really hard time.
August 3rd.
August 3rd, yeah. I think this is the perfect time to do it.
Yeah,
Would we want to have just like a little table for Western Welcome Week for a couple hours with, 2 or 3 of us?
yeah, and
standing on surveys?
one thought I'm gonna have, not to like stray too far, but it's like I'm gonna look through all the different like big events coming up in the city, whether it's Little Jams, Meet Greet Eats, Western Welcome Week. And see, like, we don't have to go to all of them, but figure out what are ones that we think some of the board members can go to and table that for a couple hours. And we can figure out of like, what people can, so you don't have to stay all day, but come for maybe 2, 3 hours or whatever you can do, and then see what works with that.
That everything for the business.
Yeah, the business we kind of just held off, but I can let Mackenzie know that.
Sounds
the
good.
days we have are good to move.
So, with the communications subcommittee, so Kaki and I, what we've kind of decided is to like, making sure we have both a physical and a digital footprint for making people aware of this event. And the digital, a mix of hopefully posting something on Littleton's official, city Instagram page, and things like that, as well as reaching out to other, particularly Denver-based influencers, trying to see, make them aware, hey, this is something that's going on. Try to potentially get some free promotion that way. And then, both of us found probably, about a dozen influencers to reach out to, in total. And then as far as physical spaces, making sure that we are using that same business list to go and put promotions, in those businesses, because I think a lot of times, just personally, like, I find out about stuff in the city by, I'll see a, a sign and it's,
Yeah.
I just found out about a planning commission meeting 2 hours ago when I was having dinner at the pho place in downtown Littleton, because they had a sign up. So, right, having signs in the businesses around downtown Littleton as well as in other parts of Littleton, that we could print out. Hacky made a draft for a potential poster, if you guys would like to see, I can show you since you're standing
Yeah.
there, sitting next to me. But yeah, like something like that, I could email and just get input, or email Hacky about that. And then also promoting at various, government facilities, basically, is making sure we have posters up, in the city hall, at Bemis Public Library, the Littleton Museum, Arapahoe Community College. Making sure that we're having those in, physical, world posters, and, leaflets up about the event.
Yes,
And then finally doing those tables that you mentioned earlier.
yes.
That's,
And I can also, if you're interested, like getting stuff up on official Littleton socials and the Littleton report. We have to go through the city with that and we can provide that.
Littleton
information.
report, that's the one I forgot to mention, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I can get you connected, cause I usually have about a 6-week lead time, so we might need to move a little quick, but I can get.
Yeah,
make it
sure.
happen.
Awesome. So that's communications, yeah.
Awesome. With the survey subcommittee, do you have anything you wanna talk about?
So I think the thing that I'm working through right now is that for distribution, thinking electronic distribution, so the QR code. Does the city of Littleton have a survey program like Qualtrics or something that they provide?
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Okay.
I'm sure they probably have something like it. I'd have to look into it and get back to you on it, but I can take a look at it if you want.
Okay, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just because I'm thinking like from a secure
Sure.
point of view, if it goes through the city instead of just.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So-
Makes sense,
Yeah.
fair enough,
Cool, yeah, I think if we can tackle that, that'd be great, but otherwise, right now, it's just in kind of a rough draft of items and I'll start to parse it out with Cody on different topics and review.
Nice. I'm pretty sure the city does, cause I've taken several surveys.
Yeah,
since
that's
I
okay.
started, so I was like,
Um,
I don't know who's
Just put it
responsible
on your
for it.
radar.
I just got a mailer for like the annual city survey, and when
Yeah,
I went a couple months ago to that event about the redesign of downtown Main Street, they had a survey about that.
Is it with, even with the flyer, that could be an opportunity for like a QR code.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Right.
cause that was one thing we had talked about is trying to get RSVPs, right?
We could sparse it out and do an RSVP survey or a
Yeah.
general interest survey and then an actual graphic. That's what the group thinks would make sense.
Yeah, I think so, cause I think it'd be beneficial to figure out how many people are coming. Cause if we get all of a sudden it's like 300 people coming, I think
Yeah.
the area we have would not be adequate on Main Street, that would be shut down, and we might have to get a permit for an expansion. But if we're only looking at 50 or 60 people, I think it would be more than fine. But just getting a rough number of how many people we expect to come.
Yeah, I know when my bar studio does outdoor stuff, like we do them at the Breck Brewery. And that's a pretty big space, but we do an Eventbrite
Yeah.
thing, so then you have to register and get a ticket, but even though it's free, just because there's only a certain amount of people, you definitely don't want it to get to be like hundreds of people. That would,
Yeah.
this wouldn't be a part of class
Do you know if
happen.
there's a cost associated with using Eventbrite?
I don't think so, but that's a good question. I'm not positive.
One thing we might also wanna do in case, some people have trouble with the QR code, is just having maybe a laptop there so they can fill it out if QR code doesn't work, or maybe just even like, a couple dozen paper printouts of it, just for some people.
Have all the.
Yeah, just have all our bases covered, but like heavily encourage the QR code.
Yeah. Sweet. Is there anything anyone would like to discuss on our pre-work for our NGAB sponsored public event? I think we've kind of ironed out a lot and have a good idea of where we want to head with it. Awesome. And if not, we can move to public forum. I haven't looked at the list, but. We'll read our disclaimer. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We expect comments to be civil, disrespect, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Are you ready, Pam?
Hi, Next Gen. My name is Pam Chaparral. I'm a block and a half from here. I have a lot of opinions. I go to a lot of meetings though, and I'm kind of entitled, I think, in that way. So it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the invasion of Normandy by the Allies, Canada, America, and Britain. Just getting those three countries to work together, much less to organize that invasion, was extraordinary. The planning, not just the execution, are both admirable. I think our city, there are 6 generations, 6 demographic generations since that greatest generation planned and implemented that. And it's my opinion that we've really lost the ability, experience of knowing how to plan and do those kinds of things. So our city, I think, is flat. We have a new land use code. We have a zoning map. You guys should and could look at it. That would help you understand housing plus small business, plus all the uses in the city that were changed. We have an excellent city with excellent bones from our old code. The new plan, we don't understand the impact of it in terms of traffic, in terms of the balance of retail and residential uses. We could extrapolate, we could estimate the traffic, the parking, the financial impacts just from land use. The county has it. We could estimate that. Has the city done that? No. Do we have targets for the amount of housing we need by certain dates and time? No, we do not. We should. We should not rebuild the whole city at the same time. That's a stupid thing to do. Putting duplexes and triplexes that are 3-story high next to single-family homes that are 1-story is not a good idea. What about the 20% of people who have accessibility problems? Our 2 housing studies said no stairs. Have we built anything with no stairs? Almost not. Duplexes and triplexes are stairs. Where is our requirement for, builders don't want to put in elevators, so we're playing right into their hands. Guys, there's so much more to think about. We need to integrate the impacts and understand the outcomes of the land use plan and zoning code that were implemented. We can do that. I guarantee you, we're Americans. We know how to do this. We did this 80 years ago. I work in an industry that did that, and I got to learn from that. We can do it. Our city doesn't. We need that. And that's all information that all of us should have together to work together. You and the environmental sustainability folks and everybody else. We should have an integrated push here so that all the housing we built is environmentally good for the next 60 years. It's not. So thanks for listening to me. I could talk more, but thanks very much.
Thank you, Pam. I will wrap up comment and it's the only one on the list. And then from that, we'll move into the comments and reports. Does anyone from the staff have any? Maybe?
Yeah, I suppose. So this is my second meeting now, just kind of feeling things out and getting a feel for how you guys do things. You guys are really good at coming up with creative ideas to sort of spark the vision that council has for this board. So that's been really refreshing. I think an encouragement that I have for you guys, a piece of advice would be that keeping organized and staying systematic with your approach is going to be pivotal and like paramount. So, obviously you have the directive from council, which is centered around the 5 major issues of housing, of safety, economic development, infrastructure, and environment, right? Keeping focused around those as the center point with which every topic of discussion comes from will be great. And I mean, for example, right, those are the 5 priorities. the topics that you could discuss based off of that would be those sort of sub issues that pertain to each one. So as it pertains to housing, it might be something along the lines of affordability, land use type of thing, what types of houses we're building, those types of things. So structuring from the broad and funneling in will be really helpful for creating those types of ideas. Another way that I think these meetings could be super optimized is by thinking about ways to create or find events, and then think about the tools you'll utilize at those events and how you'll utilize them to get the information that you need from the demographic you're targeting. Remember, you're not necessarily casting a wide net in terms of the people. You have a specific demographic, right? The 16 to 36-year-old age group, and then the 4 or so, 3 or 4, I think we established, sub-demographics within that. So the high school, the college, the young professionals, the young families. And thinking of how you'll utilize those tools and the events you'll utilize them in would be a great emphasis. And it would really help you guys with the finalization of the policy proposals that you'll be making to council, right? Either in the form of a presentation or in a memo or both, right? So those would be my main encouragements, I think. Like a good example to summarize this issue would be like the issue of surveys, right? That's gonna be a tool, one of the tools you'll utilize to gather information at these events. Maybe in addition to having a stack of those surveys on the desk, you walk around and interact with people and ask the questions that are on your survey. So it makes it more personal and you actually get a feel for how people perceive these issues and in a very direct way, rather than just leaving them on a table and having someone stand at the table and hoping someone walks by and picks one up, right? And then as it pertains to other events that you guys aren't setting up that are already in operation, like for instance, the library has tons of them, especially during the summer months. You can attend those events, you can build relationships with the library and the staff, and then you can help or maybe develop relationships that lead to them helping you accomplish a similar objective, right? Where they're now interacting with people and asking those questions, and you can collaborate with city staff in that regard. So those are just some ideas, thinking about it as a sort of funnel, like what's the main objective, what are the topics that we're tackling, and then the tools and the events we'll utilize these tools in. I think that would help you guys get a really nice foundation about how you can optimize these meetings and your approaches just in general with achieving the directives that the council has set out for you guys. Other than that, I think that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Next, our council liaison.
Well, thank you. I've been really restrained and I have a lot of things to say. No, I feel like I've said everything. I've sent 3 documents to Andrew and Jack that I'm hoping he'll distribute to you guys. And they're included in what I sent was the tentative future council calendar. So you guys can be thinking about issues to prepare to kind of think through with the council. And so, but thank you very much for putting up with all my interruptions already. So I appreciate it.
They're helpful.
Yeah, they are. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Then moving on to the board, does anyone on the board at large have?
I think you get to go first.
Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, that's just a sub chair. I don't have anything to report out. Again, I'll just repeat, if anyone has any topics that they want to see included on our agenda specifically, please let me know. Don't hesitate to reach out. Cause I want to make sure everyone's voice is being heard, and that things people care about are topics of our agenda, topics of our proposals and documentation to council. And then kind of with that, I think also our next meeting, I want to start, I think there's enough topics of things that we could start putting together a letter or 2 of recommendation, and then also start continuing to make more subcommittees for different things that like we've discussed that I think are worth addressing and providing letters either to a different organization or to our city council. So that's all I have. Just, I guess, look forward or be aware that that'll be coming up on our next meeting. That's all I have. And then Vice Chair, do you have anything?
I do have something to talk about. As I'm sure you all have gathered, I'm very conscious and in favor of public transportation. And so one big change, RTD does 3 service changes every year, one in January, one in May, one in September. They just rolled out their May change, so they just publicly introduced their proposals for September service changes. Now, one of the biggest I'm a regular rider of bus 0, and that goes up and down Broadway, starts at Union Station, goes Broadway all the way down to Highlands Ranch. And basically what they're proposing with the September service change is truncate that at the Inglewood station and then make it run from Inglewood Station down to Highlands Ranch through all of Littleton as a new Route 0B. Now, the one thing, my big question, and I emailed RTE's general line, I'll probably email the 2 main board of director people for Littleton, is what will the frequency be for that? Because currently bus 0 in Littleton is the only, if I'm not mistaken, only route that's every 30 minutes. The rest of them are every 60, right? So it's a big transit corridor for the city. And if the new 0B is only every 60 minutes, that would be a big loss for our city. But if it stays at every 30, or even if it increases, I can't imagine it will, but if it stays at every 30, I think that could be a big win to have that new route just going from Inglewood to Highlands Ranch. Because the big issue is once those buses are coming down, you know, there's so much traffic, especially on rush hour from Denver all the way coming down. They're often like 10, 15 minutes delayed by the time they get down to Littleton. So having a new route that's just Inglewood to Highlands Ranch could help out with that. So, but anyway, they have a survey about that change on their website, which I have filled out. They have public engagement events in June, so just wanted to make people aware of that. And then the other thing, I guess, is I feel like we have a lot of good topic proposals. Pretty much the same thing that Andrew said of like going forward with keeping up with the what city council is doing and the tentative city council calendar. And just weighing in on those issues and trying to use feedback that we get from those public events to determine how we want to weigh in and what we want to focus on. So those are my 2 main things. That's it from the vice chair.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other general board members have any comments or reports they'd like to make?
I just want help getting back into my email.
Yeah, I'm locked out too.
Are you? Okay, I'm not alone. Yeah, it's been really unfortunate. I don't know what to do about it.
You said I can reach out to Colleen for you, because I
I
know.
reached out to Colleen, who told me to reach out to IT. I called IT and left a voicemail 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard back. So I think maybe I should just call them again.
Yeah, I will.
Something we can assist with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm friends with a few people in IT, so I can.
You know someone, you can get me in. That would be great.
I can help you.
I feel like I prefaced it with, I'm not an employee, I'm part of the next gen board, and so they probably put me like 0 on the priority list.
Well, when they're digging through our spam emails, like for most of the day, I'm sure it's like, what? That's not a priority.
We're sending you as another phishing test.
Yeah, right.
I'm certain it's nothing personal.
It's fine, I'm not taking it.
But I doubt that it's personal.
I don't take anything personally.
But do you guys have Lauren and Cody's phone numbers? Because it sounds like if you're locked out of your email, how else could the IT reach you?
I called and like gave them my number and everything.
Yeah. Do you have her number so you could give it to them?
I do not. We should do that though. That's a good idea. Yeah, let's
I'll give it to you.
exchange contacts. That way.
Yeah, I
Get
think
Cody's number too, because he's
Right, yes.
locked out.
Awesome. Do any other board members have anything? Sweet, then I will.
Our next meeting would be July.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
Is that
Thank you.
date?
I completely forgot about that. We have to discussion about. It is July 4th and we need to figure out, when we would like to reschedule our meeting, because I know the city of Littleton is closed.
I'm assuming this room is occupied most Thursdays, yeah. We couldn't do it the week after.
To me, I mean, Thursday the 13th does seem like the most logical choice.
The 11th.
Oh,
The
yes,
11th,
I'm sorry, I'm looking
yes.
at the June calendar. Yes, Thursday the 11th, excuse me.
No, let's see.
When this room is not being used for public meetings, it is also used for staff meetings. So one thing we might do is we might check some available evenings against the internal staff calendar, look them back out to the group and see if there's an appetite.
Right. Let's do that.
There is, looking at the city calendar online, the Arts and Culture Board has a meeting on
Yeah, that'll be,
here, the 11th. If we were interested in doing the 18th, right now, there's nothing at least on the public calendar.
Is there anything, I feel like the best time would just be the week of July 8th, if there's any open days then.
Let's see. We were interested that Tuesday, the study session, the city council study session is canceled on Tuesday, July 9th.
Yeah, I think the study council is really gonna be, taking a TO from kind of middle of next month to the middle of July.
I think does July 9th sound good then?
Yeah.
Works for me. Okay. Yeah, that work.
Thank you for catching that, Cody. 'Cause me and Chris had a conversation, but I completely skipped.
Yeah, completely different.
Well, then I will call this meeting to adjourn. We don't have anything else to discuss. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Have more chocolate.